Team 100 for organizing this panel. I know the topic is, well, how is CRT impacting our school systems? And that's a loaded question because are we talking about what happens internally within a school division or state policies? Are we talking about external forces who are imposing this conversation of CRT? So I think we're asking the wrong questions. Some of the things that have been on my mind in the last 4 years that when I served as Secretary of Education, and in the last 4 months since I've been in another role and departed the position, I've had a lot of conversations with multiple people on both political parties, independents, very different perspectives about this topic. Unfortunately, I have not been invited to speak about free community college or mental health issues or teacher salaries or even COVID. But I get dozen of invites just like this, and a lot of interviews requests, and I've interviewed with Kate multiple times about CRT. So it's been my dream for 10 years of teaching and 4 years as Secretary of Education that families will finally wake up and start paying attention to education. But I did not imagine that they would do it in this way, in this manufactured crisis of the CRT. It's really, really unfortunate. So there are 3 things I want to highlight in my presentation. After real careful reflection about talking to a lot of folks, especially who are so worked up about whether CRT is being taught in schools and so forth, it's really difficult to have conversations about something that's really manufactured. It's like talking to people who say, well, elves and unicorns exist, but we really don't have any evidence of it. So I don't mean to sound mean, but that's how I really feel. The second thing I've also heard is we're seeing these mini insurrections of sorts in school boards play out across the country, where people are going and yelling and screaming and threatening school board members, threatening superintendents, threatening educators, asking for recalls and firing and so forth. They're also using terms like these socialists and communists and so forth. And I've asked folks, well, we in our curriculum teach about socialism and communism, and we even teach about Nazi Germany. And those are really problematic things. As Americans, we really, majority of Americans don't believe in communism and socialism. We really resist that. So why is there no conversations about taking that out of our curriculum? So that's the thing, is that this is some of the questions that come in my mind. And the conclusion that I come up with, and it might not be as simple as this, it's probably more complex and nuanced, but in my observation is that our country, our state, our county of Prince William is dramatically different than it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I lived in Prince William before coming into my position for 15 years. I saw the changes. I've been in Virginia for 20 plus years, and I see the changes, that it is becoming more and more diverse. There are many marginalized groups who did not have fair treatment. They're finally getting fair treatment because they're demanding it, whether it's Black or brown people, whether it's immigrants, whether it's different religious groups, whether it's gay or lesbian or trans people. And I feel like that there's a group in America that's really fearful of the change that's happening and really resisting it. And I try to look at everything from a historical lens and try to understand it. And I feel like this is nothing new, nothing unique to this era. It's just a different iteration of what's happened in the past. And some folks will argue, well, it's not a thing just about, and I think this is beyond just white or Black or gender and so forth. Some people will say, well, maybe, there are people of color who are also stepping up, and we have elected officials and active voices saying, well, CRT, they're blaming CRT for other things, and they're really speaking loudly as well. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm looking at things through a historical context, and I was born in Pakistan, and I grew up in a family that's very cognizant of the colonial rule. And there were folks, when the British Empire was expanding, these Rajas and Maharajas who sold out. And because of their self-interest, they did not care about the greater good. To advance their own self-interest, they caved in to the people who were in power. And I think this is what's happening in America. And my father and uncle are Republicans, and I don't want to make this about Democrats or Republicans, but they were very disappointed many years ago when I decided to get involved in civic engagement, and I did it through the Democratic Party. And they called their friends in Prince William and tried to talk me out of it. As a matter of fact, elected officials who were Republicans said, hey, Atif, you know, you're a veteran, you're a teacher, you're Muslim, you're, you know, your community is big on conservative values, join our party. And I did feel that because there were not a lot of Black and brown people that I could be more successful politically, but I didn't want to sell my soul to the devil. This is a problem right now in America. The biggest threat to America right now is nothing external, it's internal. It's the hate, the vitriol that is built up in one part of America that's being propagated through Fox News and so forth. And it's rotten to the core in one party. And I don't want to make this about Democrats or Republicans. I have significant issues with the Democratic Party as well. You know, I've stood up to a lot of problems. But we cannot just push our problems under the rug. We have systemic oppression, inequality, and unfair systems, and we cannot continue to ignore them. So this whole thing with critical race theory, is it impacting our schools? Externally, it definitely is. Those people like who have manufactured this crisis have made that clear. They're talking to their children about this, and children are coming in confused, or they're coming in and they're being brainwashed at home and coming in and bullying. I can tell you in Prince William County right now, they're Black and brown children who are bullied, that they're gay, lesbian, trans kids who are bullied because of the nonsense they hear outside. That's why we need to address these issues collectively as a community in a thoughtful way. And whenever people try to do that, they're resistant to that, resistance to change. So that's the problem. Back to you, Kate.